Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision Presents Sticks and Stones. My name is Sean.
And I am the astounding Anthony.
I'm John.
And I'm Missy.
So this is Haxan, and this is by Benjamin Christensen, who did this, uh, wrote and directed this from 1919 to 1922. And Anthony, this is your pick. Talk to us about what you picked and why.
I always had a fascination for mysticism throughout the ages. I always liked the idea of the jinn character from, the ancient Middle East, where, this demon creature was able to creep through your walls and steal your children and whisk them away into the night, fly away with no evidence at all. And then we bring that kind of toward the Middle Ages, where we now have witches that walk through walls, come through come through your windows, take your children, whisk them away with no evidence at all. And it brings us into the modern times where we talk about UFOs and aliens that somehow get through your walls,
Yeah, yeah.
whisk you away in the middle of the night with no evidence at all. But it's something that I found fascinating, and I always pondered the fact, or not the fact, I've always pondered the thought that is there some kind of truth, you know, uh, to this myth that's kind of, come out through, ascended through the ages. And I still don't think there is, but it's just something I always found fascinating. And then later in life, reading like The Hammer of Witches and just, paying attention to what certain religious sects do and how they punish witches across the world. It's I don't know. Torture tactics have just been something that I've always found fascinating. Anyway, I first saw this film when I was about 14, I'm gonna say, and I just thought it would be perfect for this show, and it shows us a little bit of the old that has followed us into the new world, and I think that this film has a lot to say, um, and a lot to remind us of as far as things that we shouldn't forget, especially in regards to persecution. So I think it's an important film, and I'm glad we're here discussing it tonight.
Now, I bought the DVD copy Criterion released in like 2005, roughly. And the version I watched this time uh, is the my preferred version. I've seen both, but it's Haxan Witchcraft Through the Ages, which I think is the title for both. But this is I watched the 1966 version. Both are on this disc. I understand that streaming, I guess you can't find this. So I think you guys, Anthony, I know you have the disc. John, I don't know about you, but I know Missy, you watched it. Yeah, so you watched the actual 1922 version, which is different music and does not have William Burroughs narrating it. So that's how I saw it. It's William Christensen made it. It came out in 22. It had music that already was pre-existing that they kind of laid in, and as Missy pointed out, doesn't really fit. Um, and then in '66, the Beats. It's Brian Geisen and William Burroughs, famous duo from like the Beat Hotel and just all kinds of wacky psychedelic and black magic hijinks. Got involved with Jean-Luc Ponty, who was a violin player, jazz violinist, and they edited it down, I guess, slightly, not by much. And Burroughs narrates it, and Ponty and a group of musicians add this like really frenetic jazz score, which also doesn't really fit, but which I absolutely love and think fit because of Burroughs' presence. But so this is it's readily available. It's public domain. It's on HBO. It's on Tubi. I think it's on at least one other non-commercial aidled streaming service. Anthony, the version that you have there, was that a newer version of the Criterion, or was that something different?
This is a 2K scan of the 22 film, and
Okay.
then the what you're talking about comes as supplemental footage on there. There's like an off option that you can go into it. I started that just before recording, and I'm like, I'm not gonna have time for this. I've never seen that before, though.
It's, I mean, I love William Burroughs, and I really like the music a lot. So it's my preferred version for sure. And I found
Okay.
this film because of William Burroughs and at a time when I was really into him and the occult. So it just fits better with me. John, what version do you have one like in your collection or
Yeah,
what's your
yeah.
go-to?
I have the exact same one that Anthony has, and
Okay.
I I've seen both versions. I like them both. I prefer the 1922 version, to be honest. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's really fun, and there's other cuts that have been done that they used to show on television, around Halloween.
Oh, interesting. Is there one with James Earl Jones narrating it, or like who's the guy that used to do Family Classics? Damn it, that might
They
have been a
probably,
Chicago only thing.
yeah,
Fraser Thomas. Fraser
uh,
Thomas.
Or they could have, just stuck it on like PBS and pass it off as something real and have Bill Moyers narrate it.
And so Missy, you watch it on HBO, so I know that's like the number. I think it's been on HBO like
for
for
a while.
for
I've
a
been
very
seeing
long
that
time.
thumbnail forever,
Yeah.
but I'd never seen it until now.
So this is your first viewing. So what did you think about this film?
I think it was neat, but I didn't know what to expect. Um, I went into it because I had briefly looked it up on IMDb, so I went into it knowing that it was like a silent film from the 20s, and I thought it was supposed to be like a documentary. Um, so I was really confused because I laughed through the whole thing and I thought I was just twisted and fucked up. Um, but then I was talking to Sean last night and he said it was intended to be a satire. So I guess I got the humor and I just didn't know I got it.
Yeah, I mean, it points out the ridiculous. You can't, from a modern perspective, talk about this and not realize how stupid people were. I mean, I feel like it's just impossible.
Well, I knew they were stupid. I just like I thought that at that time they thought this was real and they were presenting it that way. And I was laughing at it because I know it's bullshit.
That's why I got banned in so many countries.
I didn't know it was banned.
Yeah, oh gosh, what move? Where was
Because
this
it doesn't
movie banned?
show anything that's like that bad.
Uh, no, I mean,
For 22, it's a little risque, I would say.
yeah, yeah, you got like partial nudity like throughout the film, and
That's pre
yeah,
Hayes
it's
Code.
pre-Hays Code, and it was made in Denmark, so
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, Denmark, they were making very erotically charged films since 1907. So,
Oh, okay.
for them to do like something like this, with a woman being summoned by Satan out and walking naked out into the woods, which of course we know what director took that in 2015 and turned it into a stroke of genius. That wasn't the reason why it was banned in certain countries and for a while in the United States even and in some states and provinces it was banned because they felt that the film was promoting witchcraft, which, of course, if anyone decides to wait until the end of the film when they have a progressive, definitely for progressive for, the 1920s take on um, mental health issues,
Yeah.
then they would have realized that the promotion of witchcraft thing is a bunch of baloney and that they've been had and probably in all honesty probably has more to do with conservative societies trying to discipline their own populations, such as what we are having now.
Yeah. Well said. And I mean, I just point like I think that last chapter or whatever section definitely points out the fact that like yeah they're confessing because you're torturing them like in a nutshell, right? um but I feel like it's more of a it's not a send up of witchcraft. I feel like it's a send up of the fact that people thought that like like there's a whole part where the woman is confessing to the the priests, all the women that went to the, I think it's the Satan Sabbath segment, or it's the one right after, which is my favorite segment. But
Agreed.
yeah, it's just and just the direction and the acting and and everything about it. It's like Jesus Christ, this is fucking amazing. But she said, "Oh, all these women that like wronged me in public are gonna like." It's literally just lunacy. Like oh, she can't get pregnant. It's this guy, or he can't do this. It's this woman's a witch burner. Like, and in the Burroughs narration is interesting, where he talks about like, we start with this image of these bizarre creatures, the elephant and the leopard person and whatever, and it's like in Persia they thought these were what caused disease, and then this moves in, kind of like Anthony said, you can move this down, and you get in the Middle Ages and you get demons are everywhere tempting people. So if this guy, fucks around on his wife, oh, that was a demon, so it's a witch. It's like everything is and it's basically misogynistic anti-woman. I mean, in a nutshell, that's what anti-witch stuff is, right? It's like, oh, well, it's got to be the woman's fault. But I don't know, Anthony. So you saw this at 14. Talk about that.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Ninth grade, man. Film appreciation
Sick.
class.
I was gonna say, was this like in health class, or like last week was, all about the puberty. This week it's all about witchcraft. They
Yeah,
wheel in the
pretty
TV.
much. Yeah, I had an interesting teacher who decided to kind of throw out the curriculum and say that they were going to go ahead and show us something else. And I watched a couple different films. I watched this. I watched Johnny Mnemonic of all films. Like there's a bunch of oddball stuff that we'd watched, and then but it just became like an instrument of conversation later down the line, because at least I was a little bit knowledgeable about it now. But yeah, that introduction was really early for me. Um, I remember watching Rumblefish in that class. I remember watching you're gonna laugh, Day of the Dead. We watched
Oh,
Romero's Day of
nice.
the Dead in that class.
Not bad.
I don't know how we got away with all that stuff. And then I remember again, like later in high school, I had another really awesome teacher that decided to do film appreciation. And this was like a film that we discussed, just him and I. But yeah, that introduction was like way early on. And it went over my head a bit, but also had a great deal to do with an influence on how I thought about the world and how I viewed the weaponization of Christianity and religion in general. So, I mean, for that, it definitely serves its purpose.
Anthony,
Yeah.
as a film educator, I am delighted to hear all of this.
What about you guys? What was your first introduction to Haxan? I'd love to hear about, the first times you guys sat down and were able to be awed by it, wowed by it.
I was this is so insane. Guillermo del Toro told me about it. And to elaborate on that, I went to Q&A with him after the release of Blade 2. And they're just talking, he was talking about like films that interest him. And, he's talking about his favorite film was the 1931 James Whale directed Frankenstein, and other films from the silent era, Murnau's Nosferatu and Faust, and then he talks about this film, Haxan, and mentions, like, this guy Benjamin Christensen does this mockumentary about witchcraft, and it turns out to be like sort of a history lesson to show like where hysteria can lead us, and this is all before people like Arthur Miller are doing like The Crucible and all of these kind of things. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to check this fucking thing out. And I find a VHS copy in my university library, and it's um, it's not an excellent copy, but it did kind of leave a lasting impression on me. And then later on, like about 10 years later, I was doing some Criterion Collection catalog, and lo and behold, hey, it's this film again. And I rewatch it, and I'm like, this is amazing. This is wonderful.
Yeah, it really is. this was brought to my attention by a good friend, my friend Dennis, who like 2003 through 5, we were involved in a band that had an occult subtext, and I mean, just honestly, like we kind of practiced what I'll call gray magic, and this popped up on his radar. He was one of the two people that really, like, back in that day, got me. You know, he had an unbelievable collection, and it's like a couple nights a week we'd hang out, and if we'd record, and then after we record, he'd be like, "Let's watch a movie." And when this came out, I saw it, and I mean, you know, it's like 1922, right? You hear that, and I had some context as far as like, okay, like Nosferatu is not, you know, in the ballpark. So I had some experience with an older silent movie. But this, I don't know what it is about the costumes, especially that fucking Satan Sabbath chapter, man. It just looks real. Like, there's things in it that look, there's that like weird skeleton horse thing that is obviously a prop, but there's other makeup that just looks so fucking real to me, and it's partially because of the film quality, and it's black and white and the way it's lit, but I just think it's a visual feast. And you know, we had always, Dennis and I had wanted to play live and project this behind us, and had the band continued long enough, that would have definitely happened. Because it's, I mean, you see it, and if I was somewhere and I didn't know this movie and I saw any of the images, I'd be, what the fuck is this? So yeah, it's just, it left, like John said, it left just a lasting impression on me back then. That was like 2004 or 5.
The costume work is beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
We go into the confession scenes where the old woman starts confessing to, I birthed so many devil's babies, etc. And then they show you this scene where she's giving birth, and there's still an element of shock when you see something crawl out of the shadows from underneath her.
Yep.
And I can only imagine what that looks like on a VHS cassette.
Yeah,
but
right.
But watching this like on a 2K scan, it is fucking mental when you see the detail that went into a lot of these things. And
Yeah,
like you said during, you know, the Witch's Sabbath, yeah, those makeups and some of that costume work is incredible. It looks
so good,
amazing.
Yeah, even Christensen, just as himself as the devil, is just, it's an iconic. Like, even if you've never seen, if you were listening to this, you've never seen this movie, you've seen this image most likely.
What's his name? The not a pastor, not a friar. I can't remember what you'd call him.
Is it the prior?
Is that what it is? But just that scene where he's, you know, studying the Bible, and then whew, there's a jump scare for you.
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
That predates jumps. This predates jump scares. You know.
I love, like, near the beginning where Karna's making, like, the woman keeps coming to her like, I would need a love potion for the friar, you know, and then like it keeps escalating, and it becomes like a Benny Hill episode where he's chasing her around.
But to show the consequence of, you know, dabbling in witchcraft, this is what could potentially happen to you. You could turn someone insane, and they would set upon you.
It's so interesting that, like, okay, for instance, there's a scene, and I forget the exact context. I think it's still during where there's like this confession about all these people that did all this stuff, and there's two women that go and sit outside this guy's front door, put down pots, shit in it, and then throw it on the door, right, to bewitch the door. And the irony is, like, one of the things I loved about William Burroughs, who's narrating the version I watched, he had an approach to witchcraft. Like, he was a practicing what would later become he was kind of instrumental in, he didn't name it, but chaos magic. And he did think, like, this is one of the most fascinating things I've ever heard. There's an anecdote I think Brian Geisen told about William Burroughs, where he would come in when they were staying at the Beat Hotel in Paris. He would come out of the subway every day, and there was a kiosk, and he'd buy cigarettes. And this woman that was always there berated him every day, every day. So he went, and at the time, Polaroids were new. So he went and took a picture of the kiosk with a Polaroid, and then he cut the Polaroid so that he removed the kiosk and taped it back together, and the kiosk was burned down to the ground the next day. And he did all, so it's, he kind of like, he's the perfect person to narrate this because while it's not a story where he shits in a bucket and throws it at somebody's door, it's a very similar kind of like just boots on the ground, like DIY magic. Like it's so interesting to me. Which is just one of the reasons why I like hearing him narrate this because it dovetailed for me with my experience with it.
I'm definitely going to have to sit down and watch that version of it soon. And like I said, it's kind of like a bonus thing that's put on the disc here. So I'm glad that I have it.
Yeah.
That is going to be cool to sit down and experience. And I'm glad that I have an opportunity to experience this film in a new light. So that's fucking rad.
I wanted to mention too, like you brought up at the beginning, like that kind of the djinn to the witch, right, to the alien.
Yeah.
And that reminds me so much of Grant Morrison, who's also a practitioner. In The Invisibles, he kind of outlines how all of these things, like he theorizes that they're universal antibodies, and it's just whatever the lens of the day is how you perceive it, right? So it's all the same thing, always, but it's just the perception of the culture. And I think that fits with this too. And in a modern context, we're watching this, and it does seem, rightly so, ridiculous that I mean, like the thing with the lead, like they do the lead over the body, throw it in the water. It's like, oh, the ridges are, indicative of witchcraft. It's like, under whose authority exactly, sir? Can we check your facts? It just underlines what a strange world we live in, still to this day.
I concur. Missy, do you have any takeaways from this film? Was there anything you think is going to be long lasting for you? Are you a witch? Can we have your address?
I really liked the demons and the devil, but the part that stuck out for me, yeah, I like the part where they do the stuff with the Devil's Sabbath and the Brocken too, because any mutants out there who watch Joe Bob, he celebrates Walpurgisnacht every year, and he goes into all this stuff about the history of witchcraft and celebrating the Brocken, and it gives you a history lesson on it. And this is the first time I saw any of that like in the wild, and it was pretty cool.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect with it, and like I don't have a good track record with folk horror in general, which is why I don't usually do this one with you. But this sounded interesting, and I put it on late one night, and the music was a little bit off-putting because it's like this really happy classical music paired with this, but like I don't know, it had my attention, and I just couldn't stop watching it.
What didn't you call it? Easter music?
Yeah, it felt like happy Easter music or something. It kind of reminded me a little bit of this. If anyone's ever seen Ravenous, that weird cannibal movie that has like this happy, weird fucking Easter music as the score, it made me think of that. So it was just a cool experience, and I wouldn't have watched this. I have an interest in the occult and stuff, but like a 1922 silent film probably wouldn't have made my radar. So it was like, I'm glad we watched it. It was cool. Like I dug it, and I'd like to see the Burroughs version because I didn't know that Sean and I were talking, and that's how we figured out we were watching different movies.
Yeah, I forgot about the other version, actually. I just, in my head, I go to the Burroughs version. So I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. There's the other version.
but the Burroughs version is shorter, so they like it's like
It's
a
not.
good 20 minutes shorter or something.
Yeah, I think it's like 20 minutes shorter, right around there. Which I'm not. I'd have to watch them back to back to know what they cut. I'm not sure what they cut
That's what I'm kind of curious about what they cut
because it
in that
feels like the
version.
same movie to me. I mean, well, it is, but I mean, like, there's no like gaping deficit, right? But I've watched them. I've never watched them in close proximity. I started watching the silent one this time, but exactly like what you said, Anthony, where it was like, I started the other day and it's just like I didn't make it very far. So
Speaking of the score, that one moment when Danse Macabre comes in, I'm just like, I got the chills. I was like, I love that fucking song. It reminds me of Tombstone when they're performing Faust and they have it going on in the background. It's just this beautiful scene that they're doing, and obviously to see that inclusion in this. Well, this predates that, but I love that song is here, and it just, I don't know, fucking amazing. But it's interesting also to see, the devil form and how it evolves over the years. I mean, even into the Americas, when you get a spring-heeled Jack myth, you that's kind of how they paint him. Goat and legs and traditional horns and whatnot. Who again leaps onto your roof at night, steals your children, and is on his way off to go do whatever he's going to do with them. Hopefully,
yeah,
just eat them. But
yeah,
yeah, it's I love this iconic biblical devil that we get on screen. And again, Sean, like Sean said, there's times when you're watching it and you're seeing the movements and you're watching these creatures move and you almost believe they're real,
yeah,
because again, it is a mockumentary, but you kind of get this eerie sense that you are watching something ethereal, something that's not supposed to be there. And I love that element about the film. Um, it's it's still a wonder to behold, in my opinion. I really am looking forward to watching that other version of it, and reading the Bible again.
I think you just nailed it. That's the thing about this movie is it feels ethereal and like you're watching something that like you shouldn't be there. Like how is this? You understand that it's like a documentary, but you're like, but I feel like this is actual footage.
And it's maddening and it defies logic,
Yeah, exactly. It's not, but they do such a good fucking job. It's I mean 1922. That
Oh,
it's
and I was impressed with how good the monsters looked for
yeah.
1922.
Yeah, they do like a Pan analog too. Like there's kind of every version of the devil because Pan is obviously like kind of the precursor. And I feel like the Pan looks fantastic. Although it's easier to see that as an actor, but man, I don't know. There's just oh man, it's so good. It's so creepy. John, to what degree do you teach? Like so you were telling us before we rolled that you had this like band film
Yeah.
I don't know if montage is the right word, but so obviously like you've used this before in either speaking engagements or in classes. So talk a little bit about how this informs what you do as a professor in the classroom.
Yeah, yeah. I've taught this class I've taught this film in a couple different contexts. Yeah, one was a class I did on banned films, and the week we looked at Haxan versus a film from 1917 about birth control that was banned in the United States by authorities. Um, and of course, I teach this film in a horror film class, which I've taught, God, like over the last 7 years, like 4 times. And it always comes about during a week called The Unholy. And the main screening film that the students will watch in the class for that week, it alternates between Robert Eggers' The Witch and The Exorcist. I think it's important. But the last time I did it was The Exorcist because I felt like too few people these days have seen that film. Um, Plus, I just like scaring the shit out of people with that film.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do show bits of Hexen, and most of the time we watch, like, I think it's like the moment where like the village drunkard is kicking the old woman, and gets a curse put on him to where his mouth is forever going to be agape. And then we get the Bible, yeah, priest studying the Bible, and the and Lucifer jumps up with his fork tongue flickering, just like,
Yeah.
if any of you guys or any of the listeners have ever seen the movie Kingpin and remember Woody Harrelson's landlord, uh, it rivals that as a creepy use of tongue movement. Um, and then of course afterward we get, nod to the witch and everything. And but it's in the class on banned films where I show some of those moments, and then I push ahead to show some of the stuff at the end where they reveal modern science, and they talk about the rise of psychoanalysis and how really what defined it and really what made
Yeah.
it what it was the fact that it came in collision with the occult and people who believed in occultism, in the 1880s and 1890s. And so that's really the context that I teach this film in, and I get pretty much the same reaction. Like, I didn't know people were making these kind of movies during the 1920s. And it's the same reaction I get whenever I teach, Tinosuke Kinogasa's Page of Madness. People are like, I had no idea that, silent movies from the 20s were, like this. I just thought, my impression of it is just all, Charlie Chaplin and
Yep.
Buster Keaton.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Did any of you admire the tinkering machinery from that large? It looks like a wind-up machine of the depiction of hell.
It's
Did you
amazing.
see that? Just to see that alone is incredible, and I found myself rewinding and pausing and just really looking at the detail that went in. There's so many intricate parts in it. I
Yeah.
don't know how it was built, but it's fucking stunning.
It really is.
I would love to
Yeah.
see something like that in person. That it looks incredible.
Oh, where
And
they talk about it, they basically just say like hell is not so much, getting like fire and brimstone, but it's like getting sent to a forced labor camp.
yeah. The Burroughs narration is great there because he's just, look at these two demons faithfully stoking the fires of hell, or like, I forget the exact wordage, but it's his cadence is fucking fantastic. Um, yeah, I'd love to know what that is. I feel like I've seen that somewhere before, like maybe in college, like some kind of a humanities class or so. I don't know. Like, it looked so familiar to me. Maybe it also obviously draws
Well,
on
there's
Bosch.
there's crazy machines like that in Mad God.
Yeah, or like there's stuff like that at House on the Rock in Wisconsin, but not devilish. You know what I mean? So, um, I mean, there are clockwork, majesties out there, these like elaborate contraptions, but that just in particular because it looked like somebody made a clock, like, oh, let's take Hieronymus Bosch's work and turn it into a functioning, oh man, stunning.
Yeah, it's an awesome glockenspiel.
Yeah. And Christensen was so ahead of his time. He made what essentially the first spy movie in 1914 before World War One had even kicked off.
Really?
And
What's that?
it's called Mysterious X. And yeah, and Christensen was also openly gay and starred in a film called Michael, which was directed by Carl Theodor Dreyer, who's most people know as the guy who did The Passion of Joan of Arc with that, the famous close-up of Falconetti crying. He did a film a few years earlier called Michael, which is considered to be like the first work of queer cinema, and it stars, among other people, Benjamin Christensen.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, he was ahead of his time in a lot of ways. Haxan just to me just seems to be the most interesting way that he was ahead of his time.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely owns a spot in my heart. I love this film.
I was happy to revisit it. Again, it's been well over a decade, almost two. It's been quite a while. So yeah, longer. It's just an incredible thing to see. Like I said, there's certain films where I watch it and I kind of tell myself this is real. Like when I watch Conan. Conan is real. Conan is a documentary. There's no behind the scenes stuff. Like Conan is just this perfect viewpoint of this amazing world, and it's real to me. It's real to me. Okay, but yeah, Haxan definitely has, again, scenes in it that are unnerving because of the fact that they seem like you're right there and it is real. So it's nuts. I'm glad that I chose it
Yeah,
because
same.
it's definitely been, I'm long overdue for a rewatch, and I'm so happy that I was able to do this again. So it's probably going to be something that I want to revisit towards Halloween. I think it's something that I want to include in my stack of to watch films for that time of year.
That's a good idea. You know what? I realize I haven't watched it in a long time as well, but I do put it on Halloween sometimes and
Oh,
just have it in the background, just because of the images. You could just kind of tune in and tune out and catch some just gnarly stuff.
man. Anything anybody else wants to harp on?
I'm just glad you picked it because I one of the things I love about watching Joe Bob is that he shows me weird shit I wouldn't have seen, and that's one of the things I like about doing this with you guys too.
Oh, he'd have a
Well,
blast with this film. One thing I also love about this film is that it shows people that the whole concept of black and white film, especially during the silent era, is just completely bullshit. It's like just black. It's just there's no other better term to describe films that don't use a Technicolor process or something more advanced, because this is a color film as far as I'm concerned. One film I would really recommend pairing this film with. Watch this film and watch Lottie Reniger's animated film that uses shadow puppets called The Adventures of Prince Ahmed. It came out about 4 years afterward, and it's like just the same use of blue and red shades and tints used to tell a story, all with like essentially shadow puppet figures.
ooh,
I'm in.
That sounds cool.
Yeah,
yeah, it sounds really cool.
it's very cool.
Yeah, I would just say that, like, for viewers, if you like or love The Witch, or also, like, one of the things that really, I remember when Sabrina, the Chilling Adventures or whatever, hit Netflix, and I was hearing about it, I'm like, why would I watch this? And then as soon as, like, I started watching it, I was like, oh, it's like they used Haxan as like their fucking guidebook, right? Like there's so many things. So it was what made me really like that show, was I felt like there's just a lot of parallels. So if you dig stuff like that, this is like a good deep dive into where those films came from. And then, like John pointed out, and I didn't even realize this, he pointed this out to me yesterday. We spoke briefly, like, yeah, Eggers took that scene, he basically like borrowed a scene from this film for The Witch, like put it in there, which is like a direct callback, which I think is awesome.
The bomb. Is it the witch's balm or the witch's
No,
powder?
you mentioned earlier the witch walking in the woods at night.
Yeah, being summoned naked out into the woods.
There's the whole baby scene. That's why.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what
oh,
I thought too.
oh,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the whole
There's that.
baby bomb.
There is that too. There is that too.
There's obviously, the modern influences drawn from this, and
Yeah,
you can see it painted all over that work. Yeah, that's
definitely.
awesome.
But yeah, so if you dig that, I think you should give this a shot. And yeah, like the 22 version is on HBO, so there you go. That's Haxan, and this is Sticks and Stones, and I'm Sean.
I am the guy that kissed the devil's ass.
Me too.
I'm John.
I'm still just Missy.
Hapless teenagers beset by demons in the woods. A strange new drug that turns art into murder. A can't beat a deal on a new house with a horrifying past. A video game that might usher in the apocalypse. From the demented mind of Sean C. Baker, author of A Collection of Desires, Shadow Play, and Murder Virus, comes Volume 4, collecting Baker's no sleep work along with several never-before-published short stories. This 99-cent volume also includes the opening chapter of the author's forthcoming teenage giallo novel, Black Gloves and Broken Hearts, due out later this year.